Parents are supposed to protect their children, but sometimes they become the cause of their worst nightmares. In this video, we'll look at 5 real cases where children lost their lives at the hands of their own parents. These are disturbing stories that shocked communities and left lasting scars. It was 2024 in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. A family of 3 was about to experience an event that would change their lives forever. Zhao, a father who had been drinking earlier that evening, made a decision that led to the loss of his 6-month-old daughter. That day started like any other for Zhao, his wife Huang, and their baby. They had dinner together before returning home. Zhao had been drinking, and by the time they arrived, he was intoxicated. Huang left the baby in his care while she took care of housework. As their daughter cried, Zhao, lying on the couch, didn't respond. Frustrated, Huang confronted him, and a heated argument broke out. In the middle of this, Zhao stood up holding the baby and walked toward the living room window. Trying to comfort his daughter, he rocked her back and forth. But because of his drunken state, his grip loosened. In an instant, the baby slipped from his hands and fell from the 6th-floor window. The room fell silent. Huang, realizing what had happened, rushed downstairs. She found her daughter unconscious on the ground. Panicked, Zhao quickly placed the baby in the car and drove to the nearest hospital. But despite their efforts, doctors couldn't save her. She was pronounced dead on arrival due to severe injuries from the fall. Hospital staff immediately reported the case to the police. When officers arrived, Huang accused Zhao of intentionally causing their daughter's death. Zhao was taken into custody, and an investigation began. At first, Zhao faced serious criminal charges. However, he claimed it was a tragic accident. He explained that his hands had become slippery while rocking the baby, and he had no intention of harming her. Huang, despite her initial accusation, defended her husband. She told investigators that while Zhao drank often, he was always caring toward their daughter. In fact, on the same day, he had bought toys for her. After reviewing the case, the court determined that Zhao had no intention of causing harm. While his actions were reckless, they found no evidence of malice. The fact that he rushed his daughter to the hospital showed that he had panicked and tried to save her. Because of this, his charge was reduced, and he was convicted of manslaughter instead. Zhao received a 4-year prison sentence. This ruling sparked widespread debate. Many believed the punishment was too lenient, arguing that the loss of a child due to a parent's negligence should carry a harsher penalty. Others, however, pointed out that Zhao had already suffered a great personal loss, and further punishment wouldn't bring his daughter back. This case isn't an isolated incident. In recent years, similar tragedies have occurred in China due to parental negligence, often without legal consequences. In 2021, a 3-year-old girl was left inside a car for 5 hours and lost her life due to the extreme heat. In another case, a father left his 4-year-old daughter alone by the sea while he went back to his car. The child was swept away by the waves, and her body wasn't found for 2 weeks. Despite these tragedies, the parents in both cases weren't legally punished. Zhao's case reignited discussions about parental responsibility. Legal experts such as lawyer Zhang Xinian argued that children are not the property of their parents and should be protected by stricter laws. When a parent's negligence leads to harm, there should be consequences to prevent similar incidents. Zhao's 4-year sentence left many questioning if justice had truly been served. Some felt the punishment didn't reflect the gravity of what had happened. Others believed that Zhao, as a grieving father, had already endured enough. The case raised difficult questions. Should parents who lose a child due to their own carelessness face stricter penalties, or should the law consider their grief as punishment enough? This tragedy also highlights the consequences of poor decisions. What if Zhao hadn't been drinking that night? What if he had controlled his emotions during the argument? Would his daughter still be alive today? Zhao's daughter's death is a heartbreaking example of how a single moment of negligence can lead to irreversible loss. It also raises ongoing debates about responsibility, accountability, and how the law should handle such cases. As discussions continue, one fact remains: a young life is lost, and a family is left to live with the pain. On June 5, 2024, in Darlington County, Durham, what started as a normal evening for the Vickers family took a devastating turn. Simon Vickers, 50, his partner Sarah Hall, and their 14-year-old daughter Scarlett were at home together. Sarah was cooking spaghetti bolognese while Simon and Scarlett playfully tossed objects at each other in the kitchen. It was a moment of laughter and fun until everything changed. Around 11 p.m., emergency services were called to their home on Geneva Road. Paramedics arrived at a horrific scene. Scarlett was on the kitchen floor suffering from a severe wound to her chest. Despite their best efforts, she did not survive. The once playful atmosphere had turned into a nightmare. Simon Vickers claimed it was all a terrible accident. He told police that he and Scarlett had been joking around when he threw a knife without realizing what would happen. According to him, the knife somehow struck Scarlett's chest, leading to the fatal injury. But investigators quickly questioned his version of events. Scarlett's wound was 11 centimeters deep, directly piercing her heart. The injury was far too precise to have been caused by a thrown knife. A forensic examination by Dr. Jennifer Bolton confirmed this, explaining that kitchen knives are not designed to be thrown and that such a deep wound could only have occurred if the knife had been held firmly in someone's hand. The blade had pierced Scarlett's pajama top, entered her lungs, and struck her heart, causing rapid blood loss. Simon insisted it was an accident. During the investigation, he admitted to drinking 4 glasses of wine and smoking cannabis earlier that evening, but denied any intention of harming his daughter. His partner Sarah backed his claim, stating that the incident was just a play fight gone wrong. However, forensic scientist Gemma Escott examined the knife and found that the wound was consistent with a stabbing motion, not an object being thrown. The evidence suggested an intentional act rather than a mistake. During the trial, Simon maintained his innocence. He described the evening as lighthearted and insisted that he loved his daughter, but the prosecution argued otherwise, pointing to the forensic evidence that contradicted his explanation. Scarlett was well loved by friends, family, and her school community. Described as kind and respectful, she had posted a TikTok video just hours before her death, smiling in front of her mirror with the caption, "Ignore the mess, please." No one could have imagined that this would be her last post. Jurors deliberated for over 13 hours before reaching a verdict. Simon Vickers was found guilty. His claim of an accident was rejected, and the evidence showed that the wound could not have happened as he described. Upon his arrest, he reportedly told officers that he must be the unluckiest man in the world. Despite the conviction, the motive behind Simon's actions remained unclear. He had no history of violence, and there were no known family issues. Detective Superintendent Craig Rudd of Durham Police stated that only Simon knew exactly what happened. As Simon Vickers was sentenced to life in prison, the community mourned the loss of Scarlett. Her mother, Sarah, faced the unbearable pain of losing her only child. In a statement, she described her grief as unreal, struggling to comprehend the tragic loss. The case left many unanswered questions. What led to that moment? Could this have been prevented? Why did Simon take an action that changed everything? While these questions may never be fully answered, one thing remains certain. Scarlett's life was cut short far too soon, leaving behind a void that can never be filled. It was April 25, 2017 in Myerstown, Pennsylvania, when a heartbreaking tragedy struck the Dwyer family, leaving them devastated. A moment of desperation led to a decision that cost them their young son's life. Ewan Francis Dwyer was just 2 years old when he passed away in his crib. What happened was not an accident, but the result of a dangerous choice made out of frustration. Ewan was born on Christmas Day in 2014, alongside his identical twin sisters, Avery and Claire. The triplets arrived a few weeks early, and while Ewan needed temporary breathing support, he was soon healthy enough to go home. His parents, Justin Dwyer and Courtney Stash, were overjoyed to see their children growing up together. But raising 3 toddlers at once was exhausting. One of their biggest challenges was Ewan's habit of climbing out of his crib. No matter what they tried, he always found a way to escape. Fearing for his safety, Justin and Courtney grew desperate to stop him. Instead of transitioning Ian to a toddler bed or seeking guidance, they decided on a drastic solution. They placed a mattress over his crib and secured it with bungee cords. To make sure it stayed in place, they added 50-pound bags of rock salt on top. Their goal was to keep Ewan inside, but they didn't realize they had turned his crib into a trap. On the night of April 25th, Ewan once again tried to climb out, but this time he became stuck. The weight of the mattress pinned him down, leaving him unable to breathe. By the time his parents checked on him, it was too late. They called 911, but nothing could be done to save him. At first, Justin and Courtney didn't mention the mattress setup to authorities. It was only later, when Ian's 8-year-old half-brother spoke to investigators, that the truth came out. He revealed that his parents had placed the mattress over the crib to prevent Ian from getting out. He also overheard them discussing how the mattress had trapped Ian that night. An autopsy confirmed that Ian's passing was due to suffocation. Investigators soon uncovered the full details of the situation. The parents had been so focused on stopping Ian from climbing out that they ignored the dangers of their solution. The weight of the mattress and rock salt created an unsafe environment that no toddler could escape from. Justin and Courtney were later charged with involuntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, and endangering the welfare of a child. The authorities argued that their reckless decision directly caused Ewan's death. The loss of Ewan left the family shattered. His obituary described him as a fun-loving boy with a mischievous smile. He loved making his family laugh and was known for being part of the Clean Plate Club because of how much he enjoyed his meals. He was deeply loved by his parents, siblings, and extended family, making his sudden passing even more painful. As the case went to court, the community struggled to comprehend how such a tragedy could happen. It raised serious discussions about parenting choices, child safety, and the consequences of poor decision-making. Parents often face overwhelming challenges, but when frustration leads to risky solutions, the results can be devastating. Justin and Courtney had hoped to keep their son safe, but instead, their actions led to an irreversible loss. The grief of losing Ian was compounded by the realization that his passing could have been prevented. What if they had chosen a safer alternative, like transitioning him to a toddler bed? What if they had reached out for professional advice instead of making a quick decision? Could Ian still be here today if things had been handled differently? Now the family is left mourning the loss of their son, while also facing the legal consequences of their actions. A moment of frustration led to a heartbreaking mistake, one that changed their lives forever. It was a quiet Saturday night in Nashville, Tennessee, when the Radley family's life changed forever. At 9:58 p.m. on March 23, 2024, Deanne Radley made a desperate 911 call from her home on Edge Hill Avenue. What started as a normal evening had taken a devastating turn. Deanne had been searching through her purse for her keys, unaware that a loaded .40 caliber semi-automatic pistol was inside. The gun, unholstered and mixed in with other belongings, accidentally went off. In an instant, everything changed. The bullet struck Deanne's 13-year-old daughter, Dearia Radley, who had been standing nearby. Deanne heard the gunfire, turned around, and saw her daughter collapse to the floor. Panic set in as she realized what had happened. She later told reporters that she didn't know her gun was loaded in her purse. It had just gone off, and then she saw the blood. Overwhelmed with shock and fear, Deanne immediately called 911, begging for help. Within minutes, first responders arrived, rushing to provide medical aid before taking Dearia to Vanderbilt's pediatric emergency room. Despite their efforts, she did not survive. Investigators quickly began piecing together what had happened. The focus was on how the firearm had discharged, while Deanne was simply searching for her keys. For Deanne, the loss was unbearable. She turned to social media, pouring out her grief in a heartbreaking post, expressing that she had lost her child and that words could not describe the pain. Later, she shared an emotional video sitting in the back seat of a car, her face wet with tears. She expressed that she wouldn't wish such pain on anyone, grieving the loss of her child. She spoke of the 13 years they had together, expressing how deeply she longed for her child to return. Her pain was clear in every word. She spoke about the deep bond she shared with Dearia, calling her my twin and my heart. It was a loss no mother should have to endure. Dearia's grandmother, Iris Radley, she wrote that her heart felt as though it had been ripped out of her chest and asked for prayers for her family as they were going through a difficult time. She shared the heartbreaking news that her oldest grandchild had passed away the previous night. She ended her post with a heartfelt message to her granddaughter, expressing her love. The Radley family never expected such a tragedy. Now they were faced with the painful task of planning a funeral for a child who had so much life ahead of her. To help with funeral costs, Deanne started a GoFundMe page, explaining that her 13-year-old had been accidentally shot and killed. She mentioned that she didn't have insurance to cover the burial expenses and expressed deep appreciation for any help during such painful times. By Monday, only about $300 had been raised toward the $15,000 goal. The grief weighed heavily on Deanne, and she spoke about the heartbreak in interviews with local news. She described the intense pain of losing her child, expressing that no parent would ever want to bury their child, and that her heart felt broken into a million pieces. As days passed, she struggled to come to terms with what had happened. She shared that she felt empty inside and often expressed that no one truly understands the depth of pain until they lose a child, a pain that never goes away. To those who knew Dearia, she was more than just a young girl. She loved to sing and dance. She cared deeply about her family and friends. Her mother described her as beautiful, with an angel voice that people would always remember. She loved school, and her bright personality touched everyone around her. This heartbreaking incident brought attention to the dangers of unsecured firearms in homes. It wasn't the first accidental shooting, and it wouldn't be the last. Firearm-related incidents, especially those involving children, have been a growing concern in the United States. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, firearms are a leading cause of death among minors. For Deanne, this was an accident she never saw coming. The gun had been in her purse, and while searching for her keys, it discharged. It was a mistake that would weigh on her forever. Authorities are still investigating the case, with the Youth Services Division of the Nashville Police Department leading the inquiry. As of now, no charges have been filed. For the Radley family, there are no easy answers. The sudden loss of a child is a pain that words cannot fully describe. They are left with memories of Dearia, her laughter, her love for music, and the kindness she showed to those around her. They also carry painful questions. What if the gun had been secured differently? What if Deanne hadn't reached into her purse at that moment? Could this have been prevented? These questions will always linger. But for now, the Radleys continue to grieve, holding on to the love they shared with Dearia and the memories of the bright young girl who was taken too soon. It was a quiet Monday morning in 2019 at the Links at Sleepy Ridge Golf Course in Orem, Utah. Kellen Hill was there with his 6-year-old daughter, Aria Hill. Golfing together was their special bonding time, and Aria enjoyed being by her father's side, watching him play and riding in the golf cart. That morning, Aria sat in the cart about 20 yards away from her father. She was in her usual spot, waiting while he took his shot. But in a tragic accident, the golf ball veered unexpectedly and struck Aria in the back of her neck. The impact was severe, hitting a sensitive area at the base of her skull. Emergency services received a call at 10:25 a.m. Paramedics rushed to the scene and found Aria in critical condition. She was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital and then airlifted to Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City. Doctors did everything they could, but later that evening at 9:25 p.m., Aria passed away from her injuries. Her uncle, David Smith, spoke about the loss, describing Aria as silly, spunky, and full of life. He recalled her love for being on the golf course with her father, always soaking in the moment. Her mother, Talisa Hill, shared a heartfelt message on a GoFundMe page set up for medical and funeral expenses. She described Aria as creative, unique, and full of love, adding that she left a huge void in their hearts. The accident deeply impacted the community. Police confirmed there was no foul play. Kellen had not aimed the ball at her. It was an unpredictable and devastating incident. Lieutenant Trent College of the Orem Police Department described it as a tragic accident and said no charges would be pursued. Stephen Moret, the head golf professional at the course, expressed his shock, saying that nothing like this had ever happened there before. Most golf balls land far from people, making such an incident extremely rare. The GoFundMe page quickly gained support, raising over $12,000 within days. Messages of condolence poured in from the community, offering comfort to the grieving family. David Smith, who organized the fundraiser, spoke about Aria's vibrant personality. He described her as someone who could light up any room with her joy and laughter. Aria's family remembered her as a little girl who loved big girl things. She enjoyed dressing up, experimenting with makeup alongside her mother, and helping take care of her younger brothers. She had a natural ability to make people feel loved and special. As the family grieved, many wondered if anything could have been done differently to prevent the accident. Could the golf ball have gone in another direction? Was there a way to make golf courses safer for young spectators? These unanswered questions lingered in the minds of those affected. The community came together to support the Hills, offering prayers, donations, and words of comfort. Though nothing could change what happened, the overwhelming love and kindness helped the family through their unimaginable loss. Aria's story is one of deep sorrow, but also love and cherished memories. Her short life was filled with joy, and she brought happiness to those around her. While her passing was heartbreaking, the impact she had on her family and friends will always be remembered.